Hi there, and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Kindle Scribe. This is Amazon's latest iteration of its long-standing Kindle line of e-readers. Now, I'm a long-standing user of Kindle devices, starting with the Kindle keyboard way back in the early 2010s, moving up through the Kindle Paperwhite, and more recently with an Oasis, and now the Scribe. I've got hundreds of Kindle books. I read a dozen or more hours a week on my Kindle, and so I feel like I'm a pretty good candidate to help evaluate this new premium device. So let's take a look at it and see if it's right for you. Now, the Scribe harkens back to the old Kindle DX, which was Amazon's large format e-reader that, even though they haven't sold it in some years, it has a place in the hearts of a lot of e-reader fans. The Scribe has a 10.2-inch screen, weighs just under a pound. It's a good 40% bigger than even the Kindle Oasis, which is a fairly large device as e-readers go. More importantly, it makes the Kindle screen about the same size as a hardcover book, so reading on it feels very natural. The overall reading experience is comfortable, it's familiar. If you've used a Kindle before, this is about as good as a Kindle experience is going to get. It might not seem like that much, but flipping the page half as often just makes reading even more immersive. It's a great device if you love to read a lot. Now, as you can see, this is a large device, even when compared with the Oasis, which in itself was the previous largest Kindle. It has an area on the side where you can hold it, this bezel here, as well as some rubber feet on the back so you can lay it down to write on and not have it move around while you do so. The one major ding that I would give over the form factor is it doesn't have any hardware page turn buttons like the Oasis does. This is a premium device at a premium price. It's well over $300. There are iterations of it that cost upwards of $400. So the absence of hardware buttons really feels like a loss. It really feels like an area that Amazon kind of cheaped out. It probably doesn't sound like much, but if you're holding it with your left hand and turning the page, it can be a little awkward because you've got to stretch over and make this swiping movement with your thumb, whereas, on a smaller device, you could just tap. You'll get used to it. It's not terrible, and the device does a good job at picking up a swipe versus a tap, but when you first get it, you'll almost definitely make some mistakes. It feels like a design flaw that could have been easily prevented with physical page turn buttons like the Oasis has. Now, the device is thin, it's very light, again, just under a pound. It feels about like an iPad in your hand, maybe a little lighter than most iPads now. On the other hand, if you're used to Kindle e-readers, this is probably not going to be the only device you want to have in your e-reader arsenal unless your reading behavior is very specific. It's big, right? It's not going to fit in any pockets. So if you're an avid reader, you're going to want to keep this for around the house or in a bag. It's not going to fit in any pockets that you have. So the combination of this and maybe an inexpensive Paperwhite for, say, reading in bed or carrying with you on the train or the bus would be the best combination. Reading in bed with a device this large is a little awkward, mainly because it does get a little heavy compared to some smaller Kindle devices. Now, as an e-reader, the performance of the device is excellent. As you'd expect on a device that costs this much, everything runs very well. Screen refreshes in particular are infrequent and aren't nearly as jarring as you might expect on a screen this size. Everything feels snappy, text is sharp, with nice, even color adjustable backlighting. You can do the blue to orange lighting, depending on what you prefer, given the time of day. And everything really feels as premium as you'd hope. I was particularly happy there are no ads on the device. Most Amazon devices now have an ad tier that is the default, and you have to pay to have ads turned off. For a $300 plus device, you would hope that they wouldn't have that, and they don't. That said, it would be nice if they had an ad-supported device for under $300 for those who would want to make that choice. But for now, it's a premium device, premium cost, and it is nice that they don't get ads by default. One area that could be improved in the Kindle software is support for magazines. Sending a magazine to the Scribe uses the standard Kindle magazine format, which is really designed for smaller form factor devices. You get very bare bones magazine experience. It's really just the text and basic photographs. There's no layout to speak of. And given that you have a device which is pretty close to the size of a magazine page, it's a little disappointing. And honestly, magazines look pretty bad on this device because the formatting gets kind of bizarre and isn't really planned for a screen of this size. They read fine, and for long form reading, it's terrific. But it could be better if they use some hybrid form of layout that felt more like a real magazine. It's unlikely we're going to get that, given that this is a pretty niche product, but it's something to consider. Now, price-wise, there's no getting around the fact that by Kindle standards, this is an expensive toy. This is an expensive product. It's easy to forget how much the price of Kindles has come down over the years, with the basic Kindle available often for well under $100. This has the same 300 ppi screen that most Kindles have now, and it looks great. But the reality is you can get that same pixel density on pretty much the whole line. I might be a snob, but I could never go back to a lower pixel density device. This is a superb reading experience. I've seen a remarkable tablet, and it's a little bit lower, feels a little bit grainier, and 300 ppi is really the sweet spot. So they did a great job matching the screen to that use case. Now, out of the box, you get the device itself and a USB Type-C cable. You get the pen, which magnetically adheres to the side, which we'll talk about in a second. You get a 4-month subscription to Kindle Unlimited, which is kind of nice. But it's your pretty standard Kindle unboxing experience. The packaging is completely recyclable, which was nice. And I thought it was kind of cool that when you pull the device out of the box, it automatically turns on and starts to boot up. I don't know if they're using the light sensor for that, but I thought that was a really clever out-of-the-box experience, which I kind of dug. Now, the major new innovation that everyone knows about the Scribe is that you can write on it. You can use it to take notes. It has Wacom Pen Support, and so you can use really any Wacom pen. And I have here this so-called premium pen that ships with certain models. It's a $30 upgrade, which is worth it for the eraser, and there's a second button that you can use to toggle, usually into the highlighter. But Wacom pens don't cost a lot, and I think a $30 upcharge for what should be basic functionality is a little much. But it's a great pen. It does the job. It comes with a bunch of replacement nibs, so that's kind of nice too. But it really should be the default pen. There's no use, there's no purpose in having a cheaper pen in the box. They really should make that the default. Now, contrary to how you wish that the device might work, which would let you just mark up any document that you load on, Kindle books, PDFs, etc., you can only put sticky notes in the margin of Kindle books, which feels like an unnecessary limitation. And to make matters worse, you can only add notes to ebooks that you've added directly from Amazon, whether that's pushing them to the device from Amazon's website or emailing them to the device through the dedicated email address that's assigned to each one. I'm a heavy Calibre user, and I sideload most of my Kindle books because I don't like dealing with Amazon DRM, and I don't like worrying about my books going away or being yanked. And so anything that you load through Calibre, you can't make notes in, which really stinks. I'd like to hope that that's something that can be overcome, whether it's through Calibre or through Amazon. But in the meantime, it's a real limitation. Honestly, the ideal experience would be just to be able to write directly on the book itself. And even when you use an Amazon Direct Book, you can't do that. It's only a sticky note experience. It's a little frustrating. One other small complaint is that for some reason, this device doesn't have the same waterproof aspect that the Oasis does. It's not something that you might use a lot of the time, but if you wanted to take the device poolside or read in the tub or whatever it is that you do, you shouldn't get it wet. It has no rating at all for any kind of waterproof capabilities. I've taken my Oasis out by the pool a bunch of times. It's nice not to have to worry about it if it gets rained on, if it gets wet. This device you're going to want to pay attention to and make sure that it doesn't. Charging is mercifully over USB Type-C. There's a port kind of weirdly on the side, but I think that's because if you have it sitting up in a case, you can still charge. And the device syncs with Bluetooth headphones for audiobooks through Audible, just like every other Kindle does. Now, the e-reading experience is great, but let's talk for a minute about the note-taking experience, because that's what's really new about this device. Now, I've used the Apple Pencil and the Surface Pen for years now, and I have to say I was really surprised, pleasantly surprised, by the responsiveness and the crispness of the screen and how responsive writing really feels. Everything feels really instantaneous. There's no lag at all. Handwriting, lines, drawing are jitter-free. It looks really terrific, and everything works a lot better than you might expect, especially for a first go. So bravo. The eraser works well. You don't get much ghosting in using the device. It works just like you would hope it would. There are a gallery of paper types that you can use when you are creating new notebooks. And you get everything from lined paper to calendars to bullet journal dots. I will say that the lines on some of the templates are bolder than I think they should be, but you can hopefully find what you're looking for, or just take a blank page and take notes on that. All works very well. I'm hoping that the templates will be fixed in a software update to be a little bit less aggressive with the boldness of the lines. The note-taking experience is fairly straightforward, fairly simple. You don't get any handwriting recognition. You can't search on any of your notes. It really is just static drawing. I didn't really expect there to be, but the whole experience feels kind of bare bones if you're used to other tools like Evernote or OneNote or other similar types of technologies. The one area where the note-taking experience really suffers the most is with the lack of any kind of third-party integration to speak of at all. You can access your notes from the Kindle website, but you can't edit them, and moving files on and off the device requires you to email them to yourself in both directions, which just seems really clunky. Um, this device could be so great with a proper integration with OneDrive or with Google Drive or any number of note-taking tools. Would make it a really much more functional, flexible device. And I'm hopeful that in the new year, Amazon will add that functionality because, I think the walled garden aspect to your notes, I understand why they do that for books, but having it for your notes just feels really limiting in a way that's kind of awkward, kind of uncomfortable. You can organize your notes into multi-page notebooks as well as folders, but it's really all fairly simple. It gets the job done, but users with more complex note-taking needs, people who maybe are used to the remarkable tablet, will find it pretty basic. Now, this device really underscores to me the need for Amazon to consider a real app ecosystem for Kindle. It'd be great if you could pair a keyboard and use it to write in Word or a Word-like product. I used FreeWrite for a while, which is an e-ink dedicated writing word processor, but it has a tiny screen, a super bare bones interface. It made it really frustrating to do any kind of real writing for any amount of time. This device could be really perfect for that if it had a way to write with a Bluetooth keyboard and to easily sync with some kind of third-party service. I don't want to have to email something myself, and having a robust syncing API as well as the ability to add third-party apps seems like where you'd like this device to go. Now, it does fly in the face of the Kindle ethos in general, but this is a device that's turning into a creation device, a media creation device. And so I think that the Kindle product team really needs to think about what they expect people to use it for. And if they really want folks to really dig into this product, I think they're going to have to make it easier to get the notes off. So maybe that'll come down the pipe, but I am a believer in buying a device as it exists today and not taking future functionality for granted or assuming anything at all. That being the case, what you get with the Scribe is a pretty great device. It does what it purports to do, and it does it really well. If you want to take notes, if you want to make sketches, and if you want to just read on a big screen, maybe your eyes aren't great, or maybe you just like not flipping the pages often, I think you'll be really satisfied with the device. The battery life has been terrific. I've been using it heavily. I'm down about 25% or less in a week of daily use. So it has been no problem that way. Again, you get USB charging, which is quite fast. And the e-reading experience, again, is just really dynamite. It's very hard to put down the device for reading. My one complaint, aside from the bare bones note-taking app, is just the ability to take notes on side-loaded documents. And maybe that's something Calibre can solve. Maybe I'll hop into the code itself. It's a nice thing about open source is it might be something I can fix or find a way to get around if that is possible. Case-wise, I'm using a third-party case by Finty. I've generally used their cases over the years, and this case is pretty good. I'll talk about it in a follow-up video if you're interested. Just let me know in the comments. It does add some heft with the magnets to open the screen, as well as the cover, which will let it prop up. But it's a nice addition to the device. And even though Kindle devices tend to be quite robust, and this one seems to be really well built, you probably will want to put some kind of protective cover on because it's big. And if you drop it, it's probably going to not survive if it's a particularly long drop. So it's also nice to have a way to prop it up. Finty often makes the origami type cases. This one isn't exactly that. Again, I'll go into it later, but it does let you prop it up and take a look at it. So that's the Kindle Scribe. It does what it says on the tin. It's a great device. I've been very happy with it. If you are a Remarkable user, you might find some of its integration lackings to be a non-starter for you. But the experience as a longtime Kindle user has been great, and I am looking forward to many years of taking notes and reading books on the Scribe. If there's anything else you'd like to know, let me know. Leave it in the comments, and I hope to see you soon. Take care.